Pacers bounce back, beat the Celtics, win the season series versus the Celtics. It took something Tyrese Haliburton had never done before. Awesome fourth quarter defense, lottery pick successes, and so much more that we'll talk about today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name is Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, wowie, what a response from the Pacers, who go into Game 2 in Boston. You know what I say? Hard to beat a team twice in a row in these mini-series. Pacers, once again, prove how difficult that can be. They beat the Celtics by 9. Tyrese Haliburton was special. The Pacers defense, when the game got tight, was awesome. The Pacers force and physicality was where it needed to be. The recent lottery pick stepped up in a big way. All sorts of stuff that the Pacers need to see to beat Boston for the second time this season. If somehow those teams end up with the same record, the Pacers get the better seed. Big win for the Pacers for their record, for proving of concept of how well they've been playing recently. A lot of stuff that's been going well continued in this game. But the leading thing to me on the Pacers getting this done was their star, being a star, being the best player on the floor. Sounds simple, right? And I got a lot of comments about this, about where was this during the OKC game? And I will get to why I think that's a silly thing to say. But Tyrese Haliburton was special. He was awesome. 31 points for Tyrese Haliburton. That tied Jaylen Brown to lead all scorers. It took 2 more shot attempts for Jaylen Brown to get his 31 than Tyrese Haliburton. So advantage Haliburton there. Haliburton did it with no assists and no fouls. 31 points, 6 boards, 7 assists, 1 steal, no turnovers, no fouls. Incredible game, right? Dominant performance. When he had the ball, full control. The Celtics tried some not very aggressive coverages against him, and every time he could get a big into a screen, he attacked. They were trying to get Al Horford into play. They would try to get Luke Cornett into the play. Any defender he felt like he could get by, they would try to get there, and he attacked the rim. And that's not always going to be the best strategy for a good Tyrese Haliburton game. In fact, it has never been to this extent before, and I'll tell you why in a second. But tonight it absolutely was. He needed to turn those corners to break down a very good Celtics defense and try to create those advantages. And he needed to shoot. I talked about this after the first Celtics game. The Pacers had a lot of trouble getting all the way to the rim. They were getting into the paint, but not all the way to the basket. And Haliburton did a great job of that in this game. And that ignited not only him, but the rest of the pieces around him. All were able to have better games because of that pressure. Here's what made this game shine to me for Tyrese Haliburton. He has never scored like this, ever, in a game before. 31 points is awesome, right? He hasn't had that many 30-pointers this year. He was 1 for 6 from deep. That's not particularly good. In fact, that's the first time in his career he's made 1 or fewer threes and scored 31 points. It's only the third time in his career he's made 1 or fewer threes and scored more than 25. The other 2 were the first day of 2024 against the Bucks, and his highest scoring game with 1 or fewer threes ever was October 21st, 2022. He scored 27 against the Spurs. He made 1 3, 8 twos, and 8 free throws on his way to 27. Today he had 31 because he made 10 twos, and the more important stat to show his rim pressure, 9 free throws. His shot chart and his shooting numbers will not adequately display how much rim impact he had because he drew fouls and took 9 free throws. Led the game in free throw attempts. Almost had half of Boston's free throw attempt total by himself. Well earned. And that's not a skill you think of with Tyrese Haliburton, is drawing fouls, but it was in this game. And so that's one of the ways that you could point to say he has never had a game like that. He has never shot that poorly and still been an awesome offensive performer. No matter, I have another stat for you. I already mentioned it, but I didn't say the context of it. 10 two-point shots for Tyrese Haliburton in this game. 10 two-point shots made. That's only the second time in his career he's ever done that. Ever. 10 made twos. The other time was a game I mentioned earlier in Milwaukee on January 1st, 2024. He was 10 for 15 from 2-point range in that game on his way to 26 points. Tonight, 10 for 13. You could argue on volume, the best 2-point shooting game Tyrese Haliburton has ever had. Ever. That's what they needed. You can outshoot the Celtics, and the Pacers shot better from deep in this game, percentage-wise, although they took 31 fewer threes, which is insane. The math battle in this game was ridiculous. But they still dominated because of their paint attack. And Tyrese Haliburton was the face of it because of how unique it was for him. The Pacers as a team really built off of that. 66-48 was the points in the paint difference. That's 18 points. That's worth 6 threes. That makes up for basically almost all of the 3-point battle. And it wasn't just Haliburton getting to the rim. A lot of guys finished well right on the basket. The Pacers shot chart is like exactly what the dream would be for a team playing the Boston Celtics. But that's not typically a Haliburton shot chart. I don't even mean that to say that he needs to be trying to do this every single game, right? But he had a plan tonight. And that's the second part of this that I want to get to. If you find a way, or you know how to look at shot charts from a game, maybe I can just tweet it to help everybody. Look at Tyrese Haliburton's from this game, and you will immediately notice something very interesting. He took a left slot 3 in this game. That was the only 3 he made. And he took a layup from just outside the charge circle on the left side, and he actually missed that. Every other shot he took in this game was either right at the rim or was on the right side of the basket. He was getting to his right, and that is when he is at his best. I will never forget being in Sacramento 2 years ago, and he didn't play very well in his return to the Golden One Center, and the Kings dominated, and they were booing Buddy Hield. And we go into the Kings locker room after the game, and Malik Monk is there, and one of the Kings reporters asked him, "Hey, what'd you guys do so well to slow down Tyrese?" He said, "Oh, we made him go left." And I thought, well, one, wow, what a blunt answer. And two, I'm going to remember that to look at how Tyrese Haliburton evolves in that way. And he's gotten much better going left, primarily as a passer, but as a scorer too. He has more tools to finish there, but he's still better going right. And the Pacers did a very good job in this game of using their resources, whether that was via screens, whether that was via Tyrese Haliburton attacks, whether that was with cutting, whether that was with slicing up some interesting zone concepts, whether that was who's guarding TJ McConnell and figuring it out from there, of getting Tyrese Haliburton going on that side of the floor. Of his 19 shot attempts, 16 on the right side of the hoop. And he played awesome. So altogether, a clear effort to get Haliburton to his spots. Him attacking the rim to an extreme that is very rare for him finishing those shots at the rim, and getting to the foul line, all led to an awesome Tyrese Haliburton game. One of the best he's had this season. The Pacers' second leading scorer had 17. Their balance was a key thing I want to talk about later. It's very low in my notes, but still a huge part of the story of the game. But I think seeing Haliburton attack that way just totally was the story of the game. And he really came alive in the second half. Right? Of those 31 points, I believe 18, I'll double check. Yes, 18 in the second half. And even more specifically, 6 in the fourth quarter with 2 made shots. And he came in and he was +8 and turned the game around when he checked back in after the game got tight in the fourth quarter. Like they needed him to do that, especially in the third. That was an even quarter, but the Celtics made it close. He did everything timely and in a way the Pacers wanted. And then the follow-up from this is people said, well, wow. Great game, 19-9 the last time he was their leading scorer, both games against the Celtics. Why couldn't he have done that against the Thunder? And I get that, mostly because Derek Kramer and I talked about it for a long time. He did not play well against OKC. Duh. If the Celtics had Lou Dort and the Celtics had the most compact defense in the NBA and the Pacers were still scoring via Andrew Nembhard and Pascal Siakam, he would not have shot this much or with this style, right? Clearly, he needed to be better in that OKC game, but the context of that game and this game were totally different. And the context of this game was Tyrese Haliburton had the matchups that he could attack, had a favorable situation, had a game plan that could get him those shots, and he took advantage. It's up to the Pacers and Haliburton to continue to find those realities. It might not be possible against OKC, but that was a key difference. It's not just if he could do this every night, he would try to, or they would try to make it the case. But the fact that this is something he's capable of is obviously a big deal. And the fact that he did it against one of the best 3 teams, to me, maybe the best team in the NBA, right after the Pacers got smacked by that team by 37, awesome performance. One of his best games of the year. up there with that heroic game he had against New York, up there with that great game he had against New Orleans that they almost lost, up there with his performance in Philly earlier this month. His fourth game over 30 points this season. Pacers are undefeated when he is over 30. He had exactly 30 in Toronto when they lost, so I can continue to use that stat to my advantage. But if I want to be even more specific and less random cutoffy, if Tyrese Haliburton scores over 22 points this season, the Pacers are 7-1. Seems pretty good to me. And if he goes over 20, which is still a nice, fun number, they are 9-2. They got to find ways to get him going, and they absolutely did in this game from a game plan perspective, from a Haliburton perspective, from where they were getting their shots from, and they took advantage. Awesome Haliburton game for a huge Pacers win. So much more stood out in this game. Andrew Nembhard, the huge stretch of fourth quarter defense, a rotational change from Carlisle that turned out to be huge, the team playing exactly the way they needed to. I have a lot to talk about, and you're going to hear me do it here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, though, we need to talk about Rocket RX. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation. You can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get, how about this, 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Our second listen, Locked On Celtics. I'm sure John Corrales is going to say some not so kind things about the Boston Celtics defense. Normally very good, not particularly awesome in this game. Drew Holiday, a big factor there. And I know a lot of people are going to comment, Drew Holiday didn't play. This doesn't mean as much for the Pacers. I hear that. He also didn't play Friday when the Pacers lost by 37. They played a lot better regardless of who was or wasn't available for the Celtics. But we continue here from the Pacers' perspective. A big moment of this game was the fourth quarter. Obviously, it's a big moment in most games, but anyone who has followed the Pacers for any amount of time in the calendar year 2024, or even the Celtics for that matter, know exactly what a Celtics-Pacers fourth quarter looks like. And very rarely is it kind to the Pacers. The entire Eastern Conference Finals last year was the Celtics' fourth quarter show, and they emerged from every tight game with the win. And then earlier this season in October, when the Pacers snuck out a win in overtime, the fourth quarter was dominant Celtics. The Pacers were up 20 in that fourth quarter and almost blew that game. I mean, that was just unbelievable. And so this fourth quarter starts. The Pacers are up 7, and I was like, that's not enough. Boston could just flip a switch at any moment and make this a game. Didn't take them very long for that to happen. Pacers bench did a good job for about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. They were up 9 with 9 minutes to go. And then Jaylen Brown scored with an and 1, and then Al Horford did a 3, and Carlisle took a timeout. It's a 5-point game. I thought, oh boy, here it goes. And then they subbed, and then Jason Tatum cut for a layup and got fouled. And with 7:38 to go, it was a 2-point game. That's what they do. They cut it from 9 to 7 like that, right? And that's what the Pacers are afraid of, because that's how quickly the Celtics can change games. They were really down 11 even earlier in the frame. So that 9-0 run happened in about a minute and a half, and I thought, that's crushing. That's as tough as it gets. Who else but Tyrese Haliburton? 21 seconds later, a great driving layup, a super tough finish. I couldn't believe it rolled in. They get a stop. Ben Shepherd, right corner 3 on a pass from Haliburton. Pacers go up 7. Tatum misses. Ben Shepherd leaks out. Perfect full court pass from Haliburton to Ben Shepherd, who lays it in transition. All of a sudden, Pacers are back up 9, and they win the game by 9. I would argue that stretch from when it got to 105-103 to 112-103, and the Pacers did that in a minute and 24 seconds. So 84 seconds. That was probably the biggest offensive 84 seconds of the game for the Pacers. Haliburton basket and 2 passes. But what sealed them the game was after it got to 105-103, their defense for the next 4 minutes. Let's run through the end of Celtics possessions from the time Jason Tatum hits his free throw with 7:38 to go to make it 105-103. Missed Sam Hauser pull-up jumper. Missed Jason Tatum pull-up jumper. Missed Jaylen Brown driving layup. Missed Peyton Pritchard 3-point shot. Al Horford fouls. Jason Tatum turnover. Derek White misses a 3. Al Horford misses a 3. Jaylen Brown misses a 13-footer. finally, Jaylen Brown, with 3 minutes and 32 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, cuts in for a layup for his 31st points. That gave the Celtics 105 points, which would have tied the game when they were down 103-105. Unfortunately, the Pacers scored 13 in a row and won 18 by that point. From 7:38 to go until that basket with 3:32 to go. 4 minutes and 6 seconds. The Celtics, the Boston Celtics, the best offense of all time in the NBA last year, I believe they're first in offensive rating this year, couldn't score. And the Pacers defense was actually causing problems. This was not just the Pacers dodging bullets like they've done. The Celtics are third in offense this year, barely behind the Knicks and about 2 points behind the Cavs. I forgot how good the Cavs are. Awesome defensive stretch from the Pacers. And that has changed their season, just like it did last year in late January when they significantly changed their starting five. Their defense continues to be kind of good for stretches. It was not on Friday, no doubt. Everyone's going to go, wow, well, they weren't good Friday. What are you talking about their defense for? Well, yeah, a lot of the games before that, it was really good. And it has been huge for them in their win streak because it makes their floor so much better. And for a team that's so good in transition, just having that extra element is so valuable. Last 10 games for the Pacers, they're 7-3. That's significant for them. Their defensive rating in that stretch is 113.6, well below their season average. And in that stretch was that Charlotte game that just crushed them. If you cut out from that game onward, their defensive rating in the league is above average. And if you the Celtics game just crushes a lot of their numbers, but they're like top 10 in defense across a really long stretch, 8th in defensive rating, for example, in their last 5, right? One awful game ruins a lot of legitimately great defense, that this team's been playing. I ran through this stuff after, I can't remember if it was the Golden State or Sacramento victory on this show, and they got completely demolished defensively 2 nights ago, but they showed it again for a stretch of that fourth quarter. When they're locked in on defense right now, they're defending pretty well. And in that stretch on the floor was Andrew Nembhard and Ben Shepherd and Myles Turner. Turns out having good defenders healthy really helps your defense. Nembhard was terrific in this game on both ends. Haliburton was out there in that stretch too. And then for part of it, I think it was Jarris Walker. And the other part was Siakam. Siakam was out for a lot of it. And then when he came in, he put the game away. So really, really awesome defense by the Pacers against the best offense in the league. And they continue to actually show capable defensive play. And I don't know how long it'll last, but for now, it's been a huge thing for them doing well. Another key part of this game, besides that quick little 7-0 run and the defensive stretch that followed, was a rotational decision by Rick Carlisle in the first half that really kept the Pacers afloat, right? Back and forth game in the first half. Pacers up early. Celtics take the lead early in the second quarter. And something happened early in the second quarter that very rarely happens for the Pacers. They just yanked TJ McConnell from the game. And let's go back in time. Kalen Cooper, the astute, got me on this. So I would not have noticed it without her pointing it out. So let's go back in time when the Pacers played the Hornets, because that is very related to this game. Charles Lee was an assistant under Joe Mazzulla with the Celtics last year. McConnell was amazing against the Hornets. He had 30 points for the first time in his career. Nick Richards was guarding the whole game, and that allowed him to go crazy, but it also made it really hard for the Pacers to get anything else going. And that's a Celtics thing. They do these goofy matchup things. And look at this timing of the game. It is 22-17 Pacers with 4:09 to go in the first quarter. And Luke Cornett comes in for Al Horford at the same time that TJ McConnell comes in for Andrew Nembhard. And lo and behold, look at Joe Mazzulla. He puts Luke Cornett on TJ McConnell, and it works. It really gooks up the Pacers offense. The Pacers were stuck on 22 for a bit. They lose their lead. They get it back, but not for very long. And they were losing 29-27 by the end of the quarter. And McConnell is usually very crafty, and he can beat that center matchup, but it's hard for the Pacers' total offensive package to get going. Second quarter starts. Pacers turn it over on their first possession, miss a 3 on their next possession. TJ McConnell misses on their next possession, and they take him out. 10:39 to go that quarter, down 27-30. And they did something they very rarely do. They had a 1 point guard lineup out there, and the 1 point guard was not Tyrese Haliburton or TJ McConnell. They went with Andrew Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, Ben Mathurin, Pascal Siakam, and Thomas Bryant for 3 minutes. And it was great. It changed the course of the game. They won those minutes in a way that got them the lead back. Nembhard was making some sick passes, an incredible dime to Thomas Bryant running in transition. A putback from Thomas Bryant right before that. Siakam let free throws right before that. And Nembhard's defense was huge in that stretch too. 8:54 to go. The Pacers are up 35-32, and the Celtics take a timeout. Genius sub to get the game back under control. And believe it or not, the Pacers never trailed again. Right when the game was slipping from their grasp, the Celtics had this creative strategy change from the last game, and it was something that the Pacers saw and struggled with just a few weeks ago. They had the answer at the ready. And it was one of the many awesome things Andrew Nembhard did in this game. But it's very rare to see the Pacers, A, go to one point guard units at all when they don't have to, and B, when it is a one point guard unit on a night that Haliburton was amazing, it was Andrew Nembhard of all players. And he is very good, but he's just not normally the guy they pick in those moments. He was awesome, and that stretch turned the game around. Really smart stuff from the Pacers. It's easy to say that when it works, but I mean, I wouldn't have noticed why they did that or why it got to that point, but it did, and it was very impressive. So many more things still I want to get to. The lottery picks, Thomas Bryant, physicality, pace, all sorts of stuff that stood out from Pacers Celtics. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Lakers. They have Dorian Finney-Smith now, Max Lewis, 3 second-rounders, D'Angelo Russell to the Nets. I'd like that trade for both teams quite a bit. I think the Nets did a good job there. I think the Lakers did a good job to actually have a roster that makes a lot more sense all of a sudden. Locked On Lakers and Locked On Nets can break that down. I already can see a ton of comments incoming about that value for Dorian Finney-Smith. Maybe the Pacers should have done that, I guess. I mean, I don't think people realize the value of second-round picks correctly, but that's the best the Nets felt they could get for a reason. Anyway, the Pacers and their win over the Celtics. A couple more things I want to get to. One is the way the Pacers played is exactly how they have to play a lot, but primarily against the Celtics. And that's with force and physicality. And they did great in a lot of the stuff that doomed them last game, right? I talked about this stuff. The way they were going to beat the Celtics Friday, the back-to-back night without Nembhard or Toppin, was either dominating the physical game or winning the variance game from three. And the variance game did not help them Friday. It did today. The Pacers were at 39% from deep, although 9 for 23. What year is this? I mean, they dominated inside so much, they only need to take 23 threes. I thought that would be their lowest of the season. They took 22 against Houston. Either way, the Celtics took 54 threes and made 16. That's under 30%. Variance much more in the Pacers' favor. But the physicality part, what a change. Right after Peyton Pritchard kicks their butt with all these offensive rebounds, Pacers win the rebounding battle 50-41. It helps that they shot 6% better, obviously, but they also won the offensive rebounding battle. That was a big thing for them. 3 for Thomas Bryant, 3 for TJ McConnell, 2 for Ben Shepherd. Everybody was crashing in a meaningful way and focused on getting those boards. Those extra possessions mattered a great deal for the Pacers. That's where you could see a lot of the physicality, the effort, the energy stuff that was just, even though most people thought the Pacers would lose Friday, the way they lost shouldn't happen. They got rid of all that stuff. So you could just see the physicality and the focus and the force to me came from 2 specific plays. I think it might have been 3. And that was the way that the centers finished off of their own offensive rebounds or getting the ball in the paint. They just freaking dunked it, man. Like so many times. How many times do I say this? If you've listened for years, that I just sometimes wish centers would just dunk. They make it too tricky sometimes. And I know if they could dunk and make every shot they would, ask DeAndre Jordan, but it just feels like there's some times where layups happen where like a powerful dunk would do the trick. Yusuf Nurkic is the worst at this. Nurkic is a good player, but he just loves to use too much touch sometimes. 2 or 3 times in this game, Myles Turner and Thomas Bryant got the ball into the rim for whatever reason, from a pass, off a rebound, off a play they made defensively, and just went up and just threw it down with force and power in a way that shows the muscle you're playing with and gets your bench into it and deflates the crowd and like gets you into the game as a player. You could feel that. You could feel those moments. And I thought that was really key from the Pacers in this game. And not a stat thing, not a game flow thing, just something that mattered to me for the Pacers getting this one done. The balance was key for the Pacers. Their second leading scorer had 17, and they scored 123. Andrew Nembhard was efficient on his way to 17 points. Pascal Siakam was amazing with 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and great defense on his way to 17 points. Pacers finally put him on Tatum in the second half, something I've been wanting to see for forever, although I think that was more to get Andrew Nembhard on Jaylen Brown. Ben Mathurin was efficient, 6 for 18 on his way to 14 points. We'll get to him again in just a second. Jarris Walker was efficient. Ben Shepherd hit 40% of his threes. Thomas Bryant was 4 for 6. Everybody except for TJ McConnell. Very rare that McConnell is the worst Pacer who played. He probably was, though. I mean, for a lot of the reasons I talked about already with their rotational decisions. 1 for 6, 2 turnovers for McConnell, whose biggest impact in this game was rebounding. He was huge on the glass, but very rare to see him have that kind of game, which says a lot about him that it's so rare and stands out. But everyone on the Pacers was efficient, and that led to a lot of balance. They were able to play through a lot of guys, and the Celtics funky matchup stuff is awesome and wins them a lot of games. But when the Pacers were flowing the way they do, sometimes it works against Boston, and the Pacers did a good job either getting to a matchup they wanted or just flowing into offense in an advantageous way. A lot of baskets for Siakam and Turner, for example, just turning over their shoulder with a guard on them or someone just a smaller wing that they can score over. And the Pacers got to him quick, right? That's when they're at their worst, is when they see that matchup and they take forever trying to get the ball over to that guy or make the entry pass. They just flow quickly, get it into that guy. They look really good. They did that a lot in this game. The balance was key. Thomas Bryant, I want to get to before the lottery picks. 2 great games in a row from Thomas Bryant. He was one of their only decent or above expectation players Friday night. And he's just good, like in general. And I don't mean like a great, should play a ton of minutes kind of player, but he's a minimum backup center. He's playing well in that role. He was 4 for 6 in this game with 3 offensive rebounds. He played a pretty solid game, but the thing that mattered to me with him is this isn't actually what's going on, but with Obi topping out, like he is the de facto floor spacing big with the bench groups, and he's playing more because Toppin's out, because Toppin's not playing backup 5. So they need him to be, a little more flowy and touch the ball a little more and be mobile. Him and Turner exactly shared 48 minutes, right? So there was no shenanigans with small ball groups. And Thomas Bryant was good again. All right, he's showing exactly how he can help this team by scoring inside and being a good rebounder and being good enough on defense. So far, he's nailed the first impression with the Pacers, and I thought he played very well in both those games up in Boston. Last thing I want to close with. I've talked a lot about Ben Mathurin recently, and that's because it's been very funny how the season has gone, that when he was scoring like crazy early in the season, all the fans were going nuts, as they should. He was scoring a bunch of points. But I actually thought his best stretch, and continue to have kind of talked about him like this, has been recently. And he hasn't even been scoring that well. But I think I'd say since Philly. I don't know what happened in the Charlotte game. I can't remember too much. It was just very disappointing, and it's cloudy. But he defended really well in the Philly game. And since then has been awesome on defense and on the glass, and not like to a huge extent, but has done a good job keeping the ball moving and making quick decisions. 2.5 assists per game in that stretch, almost 6 boards, 13 points a game. His efficiency has been bad, right? It has. But he's doing a good job doing the stuff the Pacers need him to do, and he's taking quick and rhythm, catch and shoot threes. And the blend is the important part, right? And tonight was close to the apex of it, right? Not quite. He only took 8 shots, but 14 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, only 2 turnovers, good defense, important good defense, because every perimeter player matters against the Celtics. 6 for 8, barely wasted any possessions. Mathurin has been really improving in the fit department in the last, I would say, like 2.5 weeks, and he's pairing it with some efficient games. 6 for 13 in the first Boston game. Not awesome, but actually his second most efficient game since that game in Philly. Only New Orleans was a better percentage. Today tops them all, obviously. So I continue to keep my eye on him, and I've made the case that he should keep starting when Nesmith returns. I don't know if that will happen. I get why it might not, but he continues to do pretty well. Jarris Walker also, the 2 lottery picks posted out. Jarris Walker's stat line, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 1 turnover, +3. He made 3 threes. Like, nothing about it like explodes in your face, and his defense was just kind of fine in this game. But he actually had a really important first half. I think he had 10 of his 12 in the first half. He had all 12 in the first half, excuse me. All of his made shots and all of his points came in the first half when, scoring was not quite as easy for the Pacers. Mathurin only had 2 in the first half. Turner only had 5. Haliburton and Nembhard were awesome, but the bench was not good in general, except for Jarris Walker, who was hitting a bunch of important shots. I thought he was very good in this game, and in a time where it was harder for the Pacers to score, Jarris Walker was finding space. Made 3 from all over the floor, hit a left wing mid-range shot that made sense for him to take. If Jarris is hitting his shots and is engaged defensively, he's absolutely valuable to the Pacers. I just wrote a story about him, which is part of why I'm talking about him, but Rick Carlisle also called him out post-game in a good way. Call him out is the wrong phrasing to say. Mentioned him post-game and said his performance was really important. Said a really big key to this game was Jarris Walker and how he played, and they talked about how they focused and chatted with him about playing like this, and he did. He was very good. Mathurin was very good. The lottery pick stepped up, but Haliburton was the story. Pacers beat the Celtics 16-17. If they win, Giannis has been playing amazing, the Bucks are better. If they win Tuesday and make it through this calendar year at 500. Wow. I mean, again, before the road trip, when they were 10-15, I was like, it's not impossible to me that they'd be 10 games under 500 by the end of the month. What a response. Another nice win. Another win over Boston. Pacers looking a little better than they were earlier this season. We'll see if they can keep it up. But so far, so good. Another good win for the team. We'll have plenty more to talk about tomorrow on one of my favorite yearly episodes. And I'm glad this game had nothing that will disrupt it. It is the best of 2024 on the last day. Zach Pearson and I always go back and review the best moments of the year for the Pacers. We've had some tougher ones in the last couple of years, a couple of years ago. The last couple of years have been a little more fun. Last year's was great because the in-season tournament. This year, though, the most events by far to discuss. Not even Pacers. We get into PSNE, Olympics, a ton of stuff. Really fun. We already recorded it. Should be awesome. That'll be tomorrow. We'll talk Pacers Bucks in the new year. So tons of fun stuff coming this week. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show and round 2 of Pacers Celtics. Again, back tomorrow talking the best of 2024 for the Pacers. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. I'm also on Blue Sky at Tony R. East. Thanks for listening. Hope you all are having a great day. We will see you very soon.